Pam Clarke here again today, and what I'm going to share with you is how to use the Curvy Square from the Designs with Lines technique. And it looks like this. I'm also going to be using it with the basic 8-line stencil, and that's going to help us to keep it centered. We'll also be using the Curvy Square book. It looks like this, the Curvy Square sketchbook, and there's lots of ideas in here to help you learn how to do custom quilting without using a computer. I'm also going to be drawing this up using a washable Crayola marker on a double wedding ring quilt. And you're going to see how easy this is to do. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So I'm ready to mark my quilt, and what I'm using is the basic 8-line stencil, and I'm using the pounce pad that goes that I recommend when I use my stencils. So what you want to do to make sure, especially like this quilt here, it's not pieced all that well. It's something that I picked up years ago. So I'm just kind of fudge a little bit. What I really want to do is I want to get this basic 8-line stencil in here. I'm going to take it. And I'm marking this really heavy for the camera so you can see it. So I've got my lines in there. And then I'm going to take this, and I want to line up. I have to decide, do I want, which curvy square do I want? And if you put that with this one, and here, and here, and here. Or I might want the smaller one, which is what I think I want to do. Again, you want to look at it though. You want to make sure it's point here, 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 and here. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that. So really the basic 8-line stencil is what's going to help you so that it's going to square this up. Because if you try to just put the curvy square down by itself, that's very easy to get it. I'm not sure if we can, I'll see if I can put the camera up a little bit. It's very easy to get it off. All right, so let me pull this back just a little bit so you can see it right there. So if I were to use this one here, I'm going to have to guess, is it going to be even all the way through? So I chalk that basic 8-line stencil pretty heavy, but you really don't need to do that. You can just lightly chalk it, all right? And then that's going to give you something to square this up so it lays right in there. So let me go ahead and get ready to draw the design in for you, and then I'll be right back and I'll film it for you. I realized when I first marked this for you that I only did the one line in here. And then I realized I really needed this next one out here. So what I did is I went ahead and I chalked another outside line curve right there. The outside one right here. There. Okay. And I really wanted to use this design out of the book. And I added another design into here. So what I did is I actually did this part right here, is really the middle part of this one, and then I did another one outside of here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remark this again, and then I'm going to draw it up for you. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on that one. I went ahead and marked this next block just the way it is, and I added the extra pattern out here, the extra curvy square right in there. And then what I'm going to do is going to take me a couple minutes to draw this up, but I'm sure you're going to get the whole idea of it. And when I go to quilt this, I'm going to probably quilt this on black fabric because it'll really stand out better than doing it on white. And what I do is I start in this corner right here. I'll try to keep my hand out of the way. And I'm going to do a loop. This. I'm coming here. Now the pattern shows a loop, but I have 3 patterns in here, so I want three shapes or 3 areas. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an open swirl instead. Like that. Okay? Then I'm going to come up to here. I'm going to do my little loop to this one. To here. And do a loop. And you can also do a point if you want to, all the way out there. But like I said, this double wedding ring doesn't lay really flat. So I'm going to try to get it so it goes up into there without really showing where it's not pieced really well. To this one. to here. Get your loop up in there. Okay. To here. And I'm going to go up to this one right here. Okay, now I'm going to work around my first pass on that curvy square. And this is going to be just traditional type of feathers. So I'm going to come here like this. And I try to get it all the way out to there. I quilt so much better than I draw, so. But you'll get the idea. You just need to know how this, how it's going to go. Up to here, then I'm coming this way. So you always want to do the first curve, the curvy part of the square first, and then you're just going to travel through here a little bit. Here. You can add swirls, and that would work just as well. Here. You can also add another loop in here if you wanted to. Just depends on how heavy you want to quilt this. And if you notice over here, it's a little bit skinnier. That's because of the way this quilt was pieced. But once it's all quilted, you're really not going to notice a difference. Here. And we're done with that section. All right, let's go ahead and do this next section right in here. And this time I'll really try to keep my hands out of the camera through in here and do that part next. Again, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do outside of the curve, this curve first, and then we'll come back in and put those feathers in. So I start right here, and I'm going to do like a little teardrop up to here, to this one, to here. All right. And you really want these little loops in here because it forces you to change directions with your feathers. So the feathers are going to have like a mirror image thing like this one right here. So get your loop up there. And like I said, I quilt so much better than I can draw. But you need to see this instead of just watching me quilt it. So here to this one. Do your loop. To here. Get a loop up in there, and here. All right. So I'm back where I started on this second pass, and now I'm going to do the feathers. Keep my hand out there for you. Do feather. Again, remember it's just the traditional feathers, and around. You come down here, and now this forces me to make sure that I make it go in this direction. This one, we're going to come here. We want them to be opposites. That. Make it look like almost like a heart shape, if you can think of it that way. To here. This one. To that one. Again, opposite. I'm really just repeating the same thing I have up on the top. Here, this one, here, go through there, and I forgot to do my little loop there, so I'm going to put it up right there like that. Kind of reminds me of that line there. So right to here. And back. All right, let's do the center now. So the center's going to look like this part right in here, right there. All right, I've got my basic 8-line stencil through there. Then I have the curvy square. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right here, and I am going to do a continuous curve or another curvy square. So I start right here, I go to that line, my basic 8-line stencil, to here, and back. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create like a clamshell to this one. And I've got that line there. This is the basic 8-line stencil. This is what keeps it centered. It's going to keep it even, right? So then I'm going to take it, I'm going to make some feathers. Again, they're just the traditional feathers. Don't go over the line like that, but like I said, I'm a better quilter or stitcher than I am drawing. So up to here. But you have to know how to draw it first before you can quilt it. And don't worry, you have 1, 2, 3 over here and only 2 over there. I'll just put 2 there. That one, and then to here. To that one. Now in my basic 8-line sketchbook, my first number 1 and 2, there's this pattern in there that looks like this, and I teach you, and actually I put it on another tutorial, one of the first ones I did. And if you put little dots right here, which you should need by now if you've been doing this technique, okay? I stopped right there, and what I want to do is I wanted to create a little loop around that one, to here, to there, that one. I try not to take this all the way up. I can since it's already here, but if you're not exactly perfect, you're gonna be squeezing it in. So don't be too hard on yourself about this. To here, back and forth. All right. So that's not that hard to do. I'm repeating the same thing over and over again. I'm just doing these little half shells or these half a hearts for my feathers. I'm just doing loops in the center here, and I have these open swirls right there. So let me go ahead and drop a couple more for you, and then I will quilt them. All right, so let me show you another one that's very similar to basically what we just did. I already drew it up on right here, but I'm going to show you how to go ahead and draw. I'll draw it again for you. But again, we're going to make sure we have the basic 8-line stencil through the block. Now this doesn't always just work in a double wedding ring. This can just be in a plain square. It could be in an Irish chain. It could be anything that has that negative block that you need to add some texture to. But remember, when you're doing your feathers, don't be too hard on yourself because you're probably new at doing this. You want to make sure that it's mirror image. Right here. You want it to look like a heart shape, all right? Maybe they're not touching, but just remember they need to be the opposite, all right? And that's why when you use the basic 8-line stencil through here and put those loops there in the corners and even in the points, that's going to force you to change directions. So let me go ahead and mark this up again, and then I'm going to show you, I'm going to draw it for you so you can see how to quilt it. All right, now we're going to do this design right here in this book, and it's on page 22 in the sketchbook. And what I like to do is I like to start right here, and I also put some registration marks right here. So when I go to do these points in here, I have something to come back to. Because it's very important when you have something that's in the center. So what I do is I mark the dashes. So you can see I put the dashes, it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. All right, you want to make sure it's in between the dashes to do that, and then it'll come out nice and even. And then I'm going to start right here. And I'm going to do a heart shape. This to here, all the way up to this point. You can even go up higher, all right, to here. This could be swirls, this could be feathers. You can even put feathers in here as well. I'm just trying to show you something a little bit different, a little bit simpler. To here. To this one. There. To that one, and back. Now that's where I started. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another heart shape to that one. I'm going to do a loop to the dot, a loop to the heart. Do an upside down heart. Gonna do a loop to the dot, a loop to the heart, upside down heart, a loop to the dot, a loop to the heart, upside down heart, a loop, dot, loop to the heart. And there it's finished. And like I said, you can always add feathers, you can do whatever you want. It just depends on how much quilting you want to do in your quilt. So let me go ahead and move the quilt around a little bit, and I'll show you a couple of other designs you can use in your double wedding ring in your pieced blocks in your melon parts. The biggest problem you're going to have when you're working with a double wedding ring or something that has these arcs like this or curves, they don't lay really flat. But really, the problem with this double wedding ring, it's not usually in these blocks, these big curvy squares. It's usually in this melon part where you're going to have a little bit extra fabric. And this one is, like I said, it's not pieced really well, but it's not pieced really bad either. I've had some that were a lot worse. All right, so what I want to do though with this one, I'm going to take it and I'm going to lay my basic 8-line stencil here. And I try to look, you know, to see if these things line up. And if you look here, this doesn't line up really, really well here. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to just guess, all right? Because I want it to be even. So I'm going to take that basic 8-line stencil, and I'm just going to chalk in the middle of this. Now, if this melon part doesn't lay flat, and this one is not bad, but if it doesn't lay flat, then I probably do some sort of background quilting in it instead. So that's this part, and then I'll show you how to stitch in there in just a minute. So a couple really easy ways to do a double wedding ring, especially if you're a beginner, is you can do loops. All right, and loops are easy, or I call them L's. All right, and we're going to take it. I'm going to do a big loop in here like that, and I call these part the little legs. So if that's the case, I want to make sure that every time I do this melon part, that those little loops, those legs, are going to extend to here. All right, years ago, I mean, I've been machine quilting or long arm quilting for almost 30 years, maybe longer than 30. And my first time I did a double wedding ring, oh my goodness, it took me like 2 days, maybe longer. And I really fought it until I realized, you know, when you're doing this, you really need to study the quilt to see what directions your patterns are going to go in. So I'm going to keep it like this. Into here, back. I'm going to do another big loop to there, and really that is enough quilting in these pieced arcs, and it's going to get the quilt to lay nice and flat. To here. All right, once I get in here, I can actually come in and do like an arc or like a loop or a swirl or whatever down to here to the center. All right, so I'm going to come down to here like this, and it really depends. What was I doing? Was I using hearts or was I using a swirl? So let's go with the heart, since that's the last thing I just did. And here's that little V from my basic 8-line stencil. Heart all the way up to here, back to this one, and there. So when I got done with my loops, this is where I stopped, right here. And when I did all of that came in, did the melon or this little piece in here, then I stopped here. So you can easily do like continuous curve in here. So I'm here, I'm going to go like this to that one, to here. And you're going to notice when I get to here, it's not laying really flat, but you're not going to notice it, all right, once it's quilted. To this one, to here, back, to here, there, that one, here, and back. There are so many ways you can quilt a double wedding ring. And the best thing you can do is just study, go online, and look at other double wedding ring quilts. I just learned by trial and error. When I started in 1988, there was nobody there to help me. We have so much information out there now, and I'm just thrilled that you're watching this. So anyways, I went ahead and put my basic 8-line stencil through this block, or these 4 squares. But you really don't need to have that, because once you figure out how to use the basic 8-line stencil and you go through my first tutorials, because this thing is going to be a lifesaver. If you don't have a computerized machine, you have to know how to do free motion quilting. And you also have to know how to do free motion quilting to make it look nice and even. And you have to have some sort of registration lines. And that's really what the system's all about, is how to do registration line quilting. So if I start here, and we talked about, the E's and L's, or the L's, all right? But again in here, I mean, I showed you how to do continuous curve in here, but why couldn't you do the one from my first tutorial, where you put the little dots in here? Okay, you can start here and loop. And especially if these intersections don't lay down really flat, this is probably something you might want to do, because if you notice here, it's really off. But by the time the quilt's done, it's quilted, you wash it, block it, put the binding on, and it's going to look beautiful. So I get back to here. All right, now there's another one I do, I call it tunnels. And really all they are is just a little a swag. Again though, you have to remember, we've got the melon here, the arcs right in here. So same thing with the L's I did over on this other side over here. So I have to go, if I'm going to do the arcs or the melons, I'm going to go like that, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you don't have to do 5. All right, maybe 5 on the really big ones. It has to be an odd number so you can get back to the other side. So to here, 4 and 5. Stitch in the ditch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Stitch. And stitch. All right, until you work your way. And again, you can do the basic 8-line stencil through the center and do something in there. You can even do your background quilting, then come back to that other area. My goal is, when I am quilting, I want to see what can I do to keep it going as continuous as possible with the least amount of stops. So another one that you can do with a double wedding ring is I do a cross hatching, and I don't use a ruler for this because it's pretty small. And especially with my gamel, I mean, it has a really nice frame, and so I can get it so it's nice and even, okay? So I'm going to take it, I'm going to do a cross like this, that way, this way, that way, and here, all right? And then I might come down in here and do something like this, back, I'm going to cross to there. If the quilt is really, really full, it doesn't lay flat, I'm going to do an all over pattern on it. All right. Then I'm going to have to do a little stitch in the ditch a little bit. So I might come up here or lock my stitches and break my thread. Just depends on how well you stitch in the ditch. I'm going to come up here, let's go like that, to here, that one. That. And then this one is going to come over here, back. You can also do like an all over design inside, like sometimes I do like leaves. It just really depends on how the quilt is pieced. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up my quilting machine with some black fabric, and I'm going to make like a square, and then I will stitch the designs out so you can see it. And you'll also see this finished quilt. I'm not sure if I'm going to do all the same ones I've drawn on here. I might, because I kind of like things a little bit different. And then I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished. Oh, and here's the Sew Clean that I use, which I love. Okay, Sew Clean. It's put out by Bare Threads, or Bare Thread Designs. I have been using this product for a good over 25 years, and I am a firm believer you need to find something that if you're going to mark your quilt, which you absolutely have to in some cases, but you have to find a really, really good product that's going to take the chalk or the marks out. This one, what I'm going to do when it's finished, I will spray it with the So Clean. I'll just spray the whole thing on the So Clean, and then I'll throw it in my washing machine. And I have a top-loading washing machine, and I'm going to let it soak for just a little bit. And then I will let it run through the cycle, and then I'm going to take it and I'm going to block it. I don't put my quilts in the dryer. I want my things to be nice and flat. So I hope you get a good idea on how to use the So Clean, and I've had them in every single one of my tutorials. So if you ever have any questions, please feel free to email Linda's Electric Quilters, and they'll let you know how to use the product as well. So as you can see, I've already marked the quilt just the way I showed you on the double wedding ring that I was drawing on. I went ahead and I did this outline stitch first up in here. And remember, again, these are really important. This is going to make you reverse your feathers. So hopefully when I get started on this, you're going to be able to see it when I quilt it. And I'll try to keep my hands out of the way. Again, I'm trying to straddle the machine and the camera. I'm sewing with one hand. Here. See how I reverse that? And back. Up. To here. Then I'm going to cross through here. Then I need to make sure this part right here is mirror image. You want them to be the opposites. That. I'm going to sneak around here, and I'm going to do the reverse now. Yep. Round. Reverse it. That little loop there forces you to make sure you change directions. All the way around. And then I'm going to stop. So I went ahead and did this second pattern in here. I did have to break my threads. I went back in here and did this. I did the whole thing, and then this figure 8. And then you'll notice right here, I missed it. So I can pick that up when I come back. But that figure 8 is really important. Again, it's going to make you so you reverse your feathers. So I was watching the last one. I did get my hand a little bit in the way. So I want to make sure I keep it out of the way. I'm trying to sew with one hand, so I don't sew as well with one hand as I do with guiding this, but I don't want my hand to be in the camera. So I get to here, I come back. It's just the same shape over and over again. I call it half of a heart. And this way. Around here. Okay, figure 8 again, right there. And hopefully the machine wasn't in the way. To here. Back and forth. Cross. Reverse. Here, reverse right here, reverse it, remember again, mirror image, and again I'm sewing with one hand, so I'm not as careful or it's not as neat. Okay, now when I get to this one right here, when I get right here now, I'm going to come across. And then I'm going to do the feathers in here. It's going to go like this. I might have to slow this down. I'm not using stitch regulator. I'm a non-stitch regulator person unless I'm doing computer work. Then I definitely use my stitch regulator. I'm going to come up here like this. Back. And I don't want to go across, I don't want to go past this line right here. To here. You're going to come up to this and travel this way. Don't go across that one line again. There. Around. There's lots of ideas in the sketchbook, and I've drawn up a whole bunch of different ideas for you, especially using that double wedding ring quilt that's not in really good condition. Okay, so here, this is where I forgot to do the figure 8. So all I need to do though is you have to be aware of it. If you forget, then go ahead and then just be aware of it. Then you're going to do a little loop like that, because again, we want to force ourselves to do a mirror image. And up through here, hopefully I can get that, trying to get that straight. All right, so there's that. Now the third part of this block that I'm stitching out for you, I am not going to do the actual line in here. I'm going to only use it as a reference. There's a lot going on this. And you know, if you have a double wedding ring quilt or a quilt that doesn't lay flat, the more quilting you do in it, the flatter it's going to be. So this is actually out of one of my first tutorials, and it's out of my Designs with Lines, and it's out of the sketchbook number 1. And what I do is I put these little dots in here, and I did this for the camera. All right. So if you've seen the other tutorials, you won't need to put those in there because you only have to do that 3 or 4 times, and then you'll know how to do it. But I did it for this one. So those of you, it's the first time you're watching this tutorial, or one of my tutorials, then you'll understand what I'm doing. This is only as a guide, all right, those little dots. And I've marked this quilt with the blue pounce pad that I just wash out. I spray it on a So Clean, with So Clean on a sponge. And then this is a wash, an iron off Crayola marker. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to loop around these dots. So it looks like this. I'm going to come up here to a sharp point, to this one, to here. I've got so much going on in this. To here, to that one, up to here, and then back and lock my stitches. All right. So let me go ahead and show you some samples of what I've already stitched on the other double wedding ring quilt. So this product that I really recommend is called So Clean. It looks like this. All right, and there's a couple ways you can use this. If you have a quilt like this, all right, you can actually spray it all the way across the whole quilt, like so, or you can launder it. And what I'll do sometimes is I'll put like a 1/4 cup in my top loading washing machine. And then I wash the quilt with a mild detergent with it. And this marking pen that I used, I told you this earlier, is that washable markers by Crayola, all right? Or you can even go to the dollar store and use those markers. But really make sure when you look at the package that it tells you that it's washable. And the reason why I'm showing you this, because I want you to see how wonderful this product works, because this is the before. Then I'm going to go ahead and wash it, and then I'll block it, and then you'll see how great it looks. Now, if you're doing this for a customer, all right, you would actually have to get their permission first, or let them know how to launder their quilt after you've marked it. So that's just your choice, all right? All I know is that I've used this product for years, and it's the best product ever. So this is the double wedding ring that I drew up the designs on. As you can see, all the markings are gone. This is one way right here that I do in the arcs. I just did like big loops through there. But I also drew up several other ones to give you some good ideas what to do. So this one, this design right here is with the Curvy Square. And that's out of the Curvy Square sketchbook. This one right here is out of the Designs with Lines. I believe it's book 1 or 2. It could be in 3 and 4, but you want both of them. So that gives you an idea. And that's done just using this stencil right here, this basic 8-line stencil. This is also out of the basic 8-line stencil book. I believe this is 3 and 4. But let's say your quilt doesn't lay really, really flat. Then I would suggest an all-over design, which comes out of my background and designs shapes for all-over designs. Something like that. Now this one right here, I'm using my 1-inch line stencil, and I crossed it here like so, and then I did that. And that's fine. It's kind of boring, but it's going to look just fine. And then in the squares, right here, I just did continuous curve. So I hope you enjoyed this video or this tutorial. And if you have any suggestions at all that what you might like to see me do in the near future, please let Linda's Electric Quilters know, and I will be happy to try to get some of those videos out to you. I've been doing this for over 30 years and love it. Still love doing the machine quilting. Thank you for taking the time to watch this.